Coming up on this week's show, Locey and RJ Scott talk about the latest installment in their Harrisburg Railers series, which arrives just in time for Valentine's Day.
Welcome to the Big Gay Fiction Podcast, the show for readers and writers of gay romance fiction. If you can read it, write it, watch it, or listen to it, these two guys are going to talk about it. Now, here are your hosts, Jeff Adams and Will Knaus.
Welcome, everyone, to episode 123 of Jeff and Will's Big Gay Fiction Podcast.
I'm Jeff from JeffAdamsWrites.com.
And I'm Will from WillKnaus.com. This week's episode is brought to you in part by listeners just like you. We will have more information on how you can help support this show in just a few moments. Welcome, everyone, to the Valentine's Week episode.
Happy Valentine's Day to you, my husband.
Oh, thank you. Should I go on a rant while I think Valentine's Day is bullshit?
Sure.
I think the concept is ludicrous, and frankly stupid. To paraphrase Charlie Brown Christmas, I believe Valentine's Day is run by a big Eastern syndicate. It's fake, it's made up, it's stupid. If you need one day a year to tell your very special someone that you love them, then boy, have you got problems that Valentine's Day can't fix. I think it's dumb to try and make one night out of the year special, especially when that night, like this year, falls in the middle of the
Wednesday.
week. It's like, ugh. Because everyone else is going to be out trying to make this one night very special. And frankly, don't bother. You're going to be miserable. Do it the day after, or do it next weekend. That's what I recommend.
Yeah. Well, we're always the people who put our holidays, our birthdays, or whatever on the nearest weekend.
Yeah.
We don't try to do it in the. Yeah, I think Valentine's Day comes with some of the same pressure that New Year's can come with, where you've got to be with someone and you got to have that moment to get the kiss at midnight, and there's all that social pressure. I love this one every day of the year. I might do a little extra bonus on Valentine's Day, but...
Extra bonus lovin'. Okay, however you choose how to spend your Wednesday this week, we wish you the very best. Yes. As always. Absolutely. I think that's always the case. And as you should always tell that special person in your life that you love them.
Yes, I love you.
Oh, I love you too, baby.
So, there you go.
Okay, let's go to the weekly updates.
Weekly stuff. Codename Winger 4, which is currently titleless. I usually go into these with the title of the book. I don't know what this one's called yet. Yeah, so we'll figure that out. But there's about 10,000 words written on it so far, so I'm off and running on that. Mm-hmm. And speaking of Winger stuff, book number 2, which is called Schooled, went up for pre-sale this week on the Harmony Inc. site. It comes out May 1st. So I won't talk about that too much between here and May 1st, but it was a milestone that that it went up on Harmony for some pre-sale action. So we'll put that link in the show notes this week. And we officially got underway with getting moving stuff happening.
Yes, the moving stuff that we briefly mentioned last week has borne fruit, has come to fruition. Yes, we officially have a place just outside of Sacramento.
Yes, we have a place, and we're starting to organize moving stuff. So there's garage sales in progress, and well, not in progress, but being planned. And interestingly, Facebook Marketplace seems to be bearing some fruit too. I was a little not sure how that would work out, but that possibly is a place to sell stuff in a local area. So that's kind of fun as we keep driving towards a middle of March. We're about a month away from when we actually want to move this week. Mm-hmm. So keep your fingers crossed for us.
Yes.
Now, despite your rant about Valentine's Day, you do have information of some goodies that people can get who love their romance for Valentine's Day. What you got?
Yes, I do love my romance. I wanted to quickly mention that Sweet and Spicy Gay Romance Deals is hosting the Cupid Strikes Again MM Romance Giveaway. That means free books for you. It is running now through February 18th, 2018. So it's a very limited time. Some of the authors taking part in this giveaway are our friend Garett Groves, Piper Scott, and Alex Miska. Also, part of this giveaway, there are some Alpha Omega stories available. So if you have ever been interested in sampling part of the Omegaverse, and it's okay, it's just between you and me. If you're a little bit curious, I think this is the perfect opportunity to try out those kinds of stories. Once again, the Cupid Strikes Back romance giveaway runs now through the 18th. We will have the link in the show notes, and I highly recommend check it out. Lots of great books.
Yeah. Also coming up this coming weekend on Saturday, February 17th, GayRomLit 2018 registration opens. If you're an author, whether you're featured or supporting, your time to register is noon Eastern on Saturday, February 17th. And if you're going for general admission, it's at 2 o'clock that registration will open. That's Eastern Time on Saturday, February 17th. GayRomLit.com has all the information you need to know to figure out what registration level you want to be at. And we're certainly going and hope to see you in Portsmouth as well.
Indeed. Now is the time of the show where we like to thank all of our patrons. Thank you, everyone who has joined us on Patreon. Where was I going to go with that?
I don't know.
We, of course, as always, thank everyone who joins us every week on Patreon and helps support the show. Your support has helped us improve some of the technology involved behind the scenes. We are currently using a brand new HD camera to record this show.
Yes, for those of you on the video feed, you're seeing something a little more HD, perhaps not quite tuned exactly right, as we're still learning some of the stuff behind it. But
we're kind of pink and washed out at the moment. We're going to have to, fiddle with the settings. But it's high def. Don't look this week. It doesn't look great. We haven't learned everything about the camera yet. So, yeah. Thank you, everyone who has supported us on Patreon. And now, as always, you can help support the show with a pledge through Patreon for as little as 25 cents per episode. And your pledge helps pay for the cost of producing, distributing, and helping us improve some of the technology as well. Now, for fans who pledge at the silver and gold levels, you'll have the exclusive opportunity to ask questions of our upcoming guests. Also, all patrons have the option to have a personalized thank you sent directly to them. And as always, any month that we have pledges that cover our monthly production costs, we'll produce a bonus episode especially for our patrons. February bonus episode is coming up immediately following this one. We're going to record it, and the bonus episode will be live on Patreon on
Tuesday, on the 13th.
13th, the day before Valentine's Day. Now, you can join us and learn more at patreon.com/biggayfictionpodcast. That is patreon.com/biggayfictionpodcast. In The Hockey Player's Heart, the feel-good gay romance by Jeff Adams and Will Knaus, hockey star Caleb Carter returns to his hometown to recover from an injury. He never expects to run into his one-time crush at a grade school fundraiser. Seeing Aaron Price hits him hard, like being checked into the boards. The attraction is still there, even after all these years, and Caleb decides to make a play for the school teacher. You miss 100% of the shots you never take, right? Aaron has been burned by love before, and can't imagine what a celebrity like Caleb could possibly see in a guy like him. Their differences are just too great. But as Aaron spends more time with Caleb, he begins to wonder if he might have what it takes to win the hockey player's heart. Get The Hockey Player's Heart at dreamspinnerpress.com, amazon.com, and other online book retailers.
So you have a book to tell us about this week.
We're actually going to do a sort of a review roundup. We've got several things to talk about this week. The first one I want to chat about is called Fortune's Slings and Cupid's Arrows by Ari McKay. It is a novella in their Lawyers in Love series. And this is a really sweet friends to lovers story, one of my favorite kind. It involves Dane and Cal. Dane, unfortunately, is feeling pressure. He's sort of like under the thumb of his very rich and powerful father, and he feels very, very trapped, like he can't come out and be his true, authentic self. Sort of like poor little rich boy syndrome, kind of. Mm-hmm. But Cal is his very best friend and stands by him no matter what. And Cal eventually, tells him that, Dane, I'm in love with you, and I think you're amazing, and I think you can do it. And so most of the story is sort of Dane's journey to acceptance and his realization that he can overcome the obstacles that have sort of trapped him for most of his life. He's so trapped, in fact, that he is engaged to a woman, and there is a big Valentine's Day party that he has to go through. His father is throwing it's in quotes an engagement party, but really his dad is like wheeling and dealing and doing business and all sorts of crap like that. He's a genuinely horrible person. So Dane has every right to hate him and feel as trapped as he does. Eventually, he realizes that being true to himself and marrying this woman is not the right path, and he chooses the right path, and he chooses Cal, and they live happily ever after. Really quick, I want to mention that on March 19th, Dreamspinner Press is going to be releasing the Lawyers in Love collection.
Cool.
It is a paperback sort of omnibus of the 3 different novellas that are in this series. It, of course, includes Fortune's Slings and Cupid's Arrows, which is a Valentine's Day story. It also includes 2 Christmas stories. Let me see. On my list, I have Heart of Glass and Santa's Naughty Helper, which I reviewed a couple of months ago during my sort of Christmas novella reading binge.
Extravaganza.
Yeah, I love that story an awful lot. So highly recommend you check out Fortune's Slings, and if you're interested in the paperback, the Lawyers in Love collection.
Cool. So I'm going to start my portion of the binge of reviews with Down on the Farm and The Past Comes Home, which are by Silvia Violet. I did the audiobook, so these were narrated by Greg Boudreaux, also known as Greg Tremblay. He spoke about these books a little bit last week in his interview, actually. Mm-hmm. These are from the Ames Bridge series of Silvia's. These are books 1 and 2. In Down on the Farm, this is enemies to lovers and kind of a little bit second chance, too.
Yep, it is.
These guys, Beck and Cal, were at odds with each other in high school. Cal picked on Beck with his jock friends pretty relentlessly. Beck has come home to Ames Bridge after being away teaching in a larger city. But he still had to quit his job because some things came out that he was gay. And he has a settlement with his school district, and he decided to quit anyway. And he's come home to clean out his grandmother's house. Cal's family has owned the land next to his grandma's house for generations now, and for a long time the family has been trying to either buy or lease land from Beck's family to expand their operations a little bit, and Beck is hardly home before Cal comes a-calling to try to get this land. And he finds immediately that he's just as attracted to Cal now as he was back in high school. And we find out actually that Cal is quietly out in certain aspects of the community, and that Cal also had a thing for Beck in high school as well. And so now you've got these 2 men who kind of feel like they should be hating each other a little bit for various reasons and trying to come together, little snaps and crackles as they get back talking to each other and trying to help each other with their individual things, between Cal really renovating what his farm does and turning it into a green farm to become a model farm around the area, and Beck trying to figure out if he's going to go back to teaching. Does he need to stay? Should he stay at Ames Bridge, and what all this is? They are so completely satisfying, and how they come clean with their pasts with each other is one of the favorite things I love about this book. The small town portrait also I enjoyed quite a lot. There's part of Ames Bridge that embraces all of their residents, and another side that is decidedly right-wing Christian and homophobic and would like to run all the gays out of town. So that adds a nice kind of background to the story, and Cal and Beck finding their support was as heartwarming to me as the actual romance itself. But I love how they come together and decide to work fully towards their HEA. In The Past Comes Home, we see again art gallery owner Pax, who we met a little bit in the first book. He kind of provided a little bit of an inspiration to both Cal and Bex that you could be out in this community, because he came home to run this gallery and open this gallery and help transform the town into more of a touristy, artsy destination. I totally lost my place in my notes there for a second. Brad comes back home for his 20th high school reunion, and Pax and Brad have a history. Pax had a mad crush on Brad while he was in high school. It turns out, as in the other book, Brad also had a crush on Pax. They both have a lot of baggage surrounding Brad's older brother, who passed away before we get into the book. But he kind of ties the two together, and they both have baggage around the older brother. And in fact, the reunion happens right around the anniversary of the brother's death. This is more of a straight-up second-chance romance. It's not so much enemies to lovers, because these guys were never really enemies. They just couldn't find their way to each other. This one pulled on my heartstrings a little bit more, because Pax is so scared to get into this relationship. Brad's kind of all in, but he's got to pull Pax along the way to get him to understand that Brad's willing to be out. He's willing to at least be in Amesbridge part-time, because he's a consultant, so he can kind of work anywhere. But Pax is terrified that once he sees what certain people in the town will think of it, that Brad will just pack up and run away. So it's really, that one pulled on my heartstrings a little bit more. And the way that these two go between being just obstinate with each other and totally lovable, just really did it for me. And the scene that plays out at the high school reunion, which I won't go into because, spoilers, was completely adorable. Book 3 in this series, Tied to Home, came out in January. And as soon as Greg finishes that audiobook and it's available on Audible, I'll certainly be picking that up. Now, you read these too on the audio. You nodded a lot while I talked. I take it you like these as well.
I did. I think they're really good books, really solid second chance romance books. As I mentioned, one of my favorite tropes ever. So yeah, I highly recommend the Amesbridge series by Silvia Violet. They're really good.
Cool. Movies.
Yes, let's take a few minutes to talk movies. Recently, Jeff and I finally got around to seeing Call Me By Your Name. Now, for those of you who don't remember or have been living under a rock, Call Me By Your Name is based on the best-selling literary tale of the same name. Came out about 10 years ago. A couple of months ago, Jeff and I read and listened to the book, and it is the story of a young Italian guy and how he falls for his I would
say the visiting American person working on his book.
Yeah. So
visiting academic would be more clear.
There we go. Okay. So that's sort of essentially a coming of age, coming out story. The movie follows the book pretty closely. There are some minor changes. What did you think?
I particularly love the performances. Armie Hammer as the academic, and I found out recently I'm pronouncing his name wrong, and I'm probably not going to do it right here. He's more like Timothée instead of Timothy. There's an accent in there. Who's Timothée Chalamet? Is that right? Did I butcher
Chalamet.
Chalamet. See, just doing it badly. Were really outstanding. I could see why the younger actor's up for an Oscar nomination here, because I thought his work was really good. He played his emotions really on the surface, and it gave a little bit of the feeling of the book, because the book is really all in the young man's head. and told from his point of view. So he had a lot to convey to get stuff out there, since there wasn't, thankfully, voiceover narration discussing exactly what he was feeling about the moment. Some of my favorite scenes from the book aren't there, and I actually wonder how, if you haven't read the book, how the movie works. Because I feel like there's a lot of subtext just missing because of the cinematic nature that they had to go to. Mm-hmm. But I still enjoyed it. It's a beautiful film. The story that they've told is really good. I feel like I had to fill in a lot of pieces because of the book that I'd read versus what I saw on the screen.
Okay. All right.
And your take on it?
Like the book, after we walked out of the movie, I was sort of like, meh. You know? Truthfully, I didn't quite connect to the movie. A lot of people are like jumping up and down saying it's the best, gay cinema ever. Mm-hmm. I don't think that the movie is bad in any way. I just didn't connect with it. I think there are a lot better coming of age, coming out stories from years past. So, like I said, I didn't hate it, but I didn't love it either.
Oh, the one last thing I will say is that the closing scene, I found it extraordinary. It was my favorite thing in the movie, and I really feel like that's why that young man could get his Oscar, mm-hmm. because that was stunning.
Mm-hmm. Also, we want to quickly mention, we also watched God's Own Country. I've been seeing a lot of people mention this movie online, saying that they liked it even more than Call Me By Your Name. I think God's Own Country is sort of maybe unfairly labeled British Brokeback. Simply because the two main characters in God's Own Country happen to be farmers, and they get to know each other and fall in love while they're caring for a herd of sheep, just like in that other classic film. But that's really kind of where the similarities end. God's Own Country came out last year in 2017. As I mentioned, it's a British film, and it's the story of Johnny. He feels he's... boy, does his life suck. He feels trapped. He's eventually stuck on his family's farm. His father has had a stroke and can't do much anymore. So Johnny is the only guy who's running the farm, taking care of all of the animals. And it's a pretty bleak situation. His family hires a Romanian farmhand to help keep the place running. Georgi, is his name, and of course the two of them sort of clash initially, but then once they get to know each other, they think they're great, and they fall in love. There's drama involving the family and the farm, but eventually everything works out, which is very good. What did you think?
Yeah, I would agree with you on the Brokeback similarity track. This one, I liked it. It took me a little bit to get into it. There was a slow ramp up for me, but you're right. The poor Johnny has a sucky life. But I liked how these two found each other and how it was kind of a slow burn between...
Yeah, I think that's accurate.
You're someone I can just get off with while we're stuck out here minding these sheep, to you're someone I can see building a life with. Mm-hmm. And how all that comes together. And I feel like Johnny really had a growth track here because he went from... I would say being selfish around his activities, around having to take care of the farm and take care of his father and stuff, to really maturing into the role of, I need to do this is the right thing, and I can also have this love in my life. Mm-hmm. He really arced really nicely in the film. I loved it. I got to where the longer it went, the more I just loved the film. And yeah, I also liked it better than Call Me By Your Name, mm-hmm. as an entire cinematic piece.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's really good. Check it out.
Yes, God's Own Country. It's available in most streaming places wherever you choose to rent or buy films.
Did you know that podcasts love to get reviews too? Taking a moment to leave a review about the Big Gay Fiction podcast helps us with the show's visibility online. Please take a moment to visit iTunes and leave a review. Your comments help other readers of gay romance discover this show. Thanks for helping us spread the word about the Big Gay Fiction podcast.
So two friends of the podcast, Locey and RJ Scott, were back this week. We were talking about their newest installment in the Harrisburg Railers series called Poke Check. It was so fun talking to these two. We had a hilarious time. We're cracking each other up more often than not. So let's get to that interview. So for Valentine's Week, I'm very happy to welcome back to the podcast VL Locey and RJ Scott. VL loves Warren Jeans, yoga, belly laughs, Doctor Who, Torchwood, reading and writing lusty tales, Greek mythology, the New York Rangers, comic books, and coffee, and not necessarily in that order. She shares her life with her husband, her daughter, one dog, two cats, two Jersey steers, and a flock of assorted domestic fowl, which apparently are all under snow as we're talking this morning.
Mostly, yeah.
RJ's goal is to write stories with a heart of romance, a troubled road to reach happiness, and most importantly, that hint of a happily ever after. She's the best-selling author of over 100 romance books. She writes emotional stories of complicated characters, cowboys, millionaires, princes, and the men who get mixed up in their lives. You need to update your bio because now there's hockey players in there.
There is hockey players, yeah.
Welcome to the podcast.
Hi.
Thank you. Hi, thanks for having us.
So it's Valentine's Week, and you have a brand new book out with the Harrisburg Railers line. Tell us all about Poke Check.
Over to you, VL.
Thanks.
Way to divert that question, RJ.
Oh, she's good. She's good. Well, Poke Check is the fourth book. Correct me on any mistakes I make here, RJ. The fourth book in the Railers series. It stars the goalie Stan. Everybody was crazy to get his story, so RJ and I made sure we included it in the series. I don't know how much do you want me to give you the blurb or just tell you what it's about, or I'm not sure what you want from me here with it.
Tell us what the story is about.
The story is about Stan. Oh boy, he met a fellow hockey player for a training camp during the summer in Helsinki, I believe it was. And they hit it off, to put it mildly. There's a lot of a language barrier going on, but they still managed to get their points across to each other, Stan and Eric. Things being what they were at the end of this training camp, Eric left, kind of broke Stan's heart. Life throws him a little bit of a curveball and brings Eric back into Stan's life and onto the Harrisburg Railers. So they have to then work through their own personal issues, of course, as well as the mess that it brings into the team and into the locker room. It's a pretty powerful story, though, I think. I mean, there's a lot of redemption.
Love Stan.
Yeah, we love Stan. And there's a lot of redemption in it and, forgiveness. And they both have to look deep into themselves, to get past what happened.
Okay. What was the seed of inspiration for the book?
Well, that's to you, RJ.
Thanks for that one. Mm-hmm. Can I take the first question? Can we rewind?
No, I fumbled through that.
What was the inspiration? Stan started off as just a mention that we needed a goalkeeper, and that was Stan, and he happened to be Russian, and he happened to like talking to the pipes, and he was a little bit odd, as most goaltenders are, and he just grew. He was friends with 10 in book 1, and he was a really good foil for 10 because 10 was all talking and Stan was coming back with some really weird words, and he was just a funny character, and he grew and we got so many emails and comments about wanting Stan's character, and he's still odd and he's still weird, but that's just on the surface. And we get to hear about, his feelings about what's going on in Russia at the moment, and his fears for his family back in Russia, and also his hopes for the future. And the whole book is about that. It's his journey from being scared to looking forward to the future and being in love. And obviously Eric was a big part of his life last summer, and we just wanted to show somebody else who had their own journey, and they just happened to meet up on the Railers again, and their journeys collided. Mm-hmm. Did any of that make any sense?
Yes,
absolutely.
That was lovely.
Their journeys collided.
That was lovely. Yeah, Stan was a really interesting character that he, like RJ said, he really just started out as this background character because we needed a goalie, and we decided we wanted to have a Russian goalie. I'm not sure why we wanted him to be Russian, just because we wanted him to be. And he's learning all of his English mostly through American TV, pop culture. Yeah, he's really big on Elvis Presley movies. So like a lot of that is his English is really groovy. And so he's very much like, I think what appeals to me about him is he's almost like Mork from Mork, where you take this alien and you plunk him down into American society, and you get to watch their journey through, his eyes, and he's trying so hard to be what he wants to be, which is an American. And it's funny how it like kind of touches on things that were relevant still with immigration and all of this. So he's really an interesting character, and he's a lot of fun to write. He's a lot of fun. Yeah.
What kind of research did you have to do for like his speech patterns and just what things could be like in Russia for his family and stuff like that to kind of make him authentic on the page?
Well, I can talk about the speech patterns a bit because being a Penguins fan, obviously we have a certain Russian on our team, and the way he talks and the way his talking has improved since when he first joined the Penguins. We're talking Malkin here, all the way through to now. And and Vicky's obviously seen the same thing. And there are a lot of Russians in the NHL, so we get to see their interviews and the way they miss out words that don't seem important and then get words wrong. So we did that kind of research, but the research on the immigration, that was you, wasn't it, Vicky? You did that side.
Yeah, I did that. I read up on how things are in Chechnya. Stan's not from Chechnya, but he's from a very a locale very close to it. And so I did a lot of research on how things are for gay people in Chechnya and in Russia in general. And I didn't want that to overpower the story, but it's a very important part of who Stan is, where he comes from, and why he is the way he is. And his mother and his sister are still in Russia, and it's a very powerful drive of why he does not want anybody to know, because he's afraid that news will get back to Russia and it might impact his family. So it's very important to him and to his character. And, I also wanted to, we wanted to bring that to light and make, have people know this is happening today, in this country. And the more exposure it gets, the better. And so that was part of it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's hard to populate a hockey book that doesn't have at least one Russian in it somewhere. So it's great that you, that you were able to deepen out that character.
Well, we have a Russian and a Swede.
And a Canadian.
A couple of Canadians, some Americans.
It's a nice little melting pot. Yeah.
Did you put a British hockey player in yet?
No, but I need to write a British player in the NHL. There has to be a British person here who can play well enough to get to the NHL. There has to be. Or
would aspire to be good enough to do what it takes to get there.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That would be fun.
There went the plot bunny. I see that look in her eye.
Take a note, Vicky. Take a note.
Take a note, Locey. Yeah.
So take us back 4 books. What was the origin of the Harrisburg Railers series?
I have a weekly thing on my blog where I interview authors, and I loved this series of books about this guy called Vic, who was a hockey player, and the guy he fell for, Dan, who has the patience of a saint. And I absolutely fell in love with it. And I'd met Vicky online through a hockey romance website that we both worked on, and hockeyromance.com, if anybody wants to know that. But we got talking, and I interviewed her, and I said, we should write together, and that was it. That was how it started, wasn't it?
Yeah.
We had all these stories, and they just spilled out. It was a mess. We wrote book 1 in about 3 weeks, didn't we?
We did, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Then book 2 and book 3, and the only reason that book 5 has taken longer, 5 weeks, is because Christmas got in the way. So
Yeah, we had to stop for a day or two.
yeah.
But it's very inspirational. I find it's different co-authoring as doing it solo. And I find that I'm usually very inspired to write anyway. I write on a daily basis. That's just part of my thing. But I find like with RJ, like you write your chapter and you send it to her and you're like, oh, I'm so nervous. I hope she likes it. And she of course, and she's like, oh my God, this is fabulous. And then you're like, yeah. And then she gets real. So she's like, oh, I want to write this right now, but it's 9:00 at night and I have, God dang it, I got to go to bed. But you really inspire each other, I find, and I think that's why we can knock them out as quickly as we do. Because there have been days where it's been like, she'll send me her chapter and I'll be like, well, I just might start on mine right now.
And that's how it works. And sometimes we'll turn around 6,000 words in a particular day because of the time zone differences. So, that works really well. But we just wanted to have this team, and we wanted to have all these love stories, all these possibilities. And we're both great writers of romance. We love romance and we love hockey, and it just happened, didn't it? There wasn't any. We didn't even set out to write a series. When we first started writing, it was just going to be changing lines, and we had ideas, but we weren't sure how it would work. Well, we've got ideas for about 3,000 books.
Just 3,000.
Well, maybe more
for this series.
Yeah, for this series.
Yeah.
How did you piece the team together? What was kind of the process of like putting together, we know we're going to do a book and we need a team and we need some players. How did all of it kind of get put together initially? Just bouncing ideas or?
Yeah, basically. We didn't sit down and like really create a team. Like I've done that before. I've sat down, I think I did that with the Venom, where I sat down and I made the roster and I listed every player on the roster and the coaches and where they play on their practice facility. And that's really handy. But we just didn't do that. It's just not the way we work. We're kind of like, okay, well, we're going to have, like with the first book, well, we're going to have Kenneth, we're going to have Jared. And then the characters just kind of came to life as we were writing them. And then, they just keep growing and growing, and they just kind of populated, the series themselves. They're very pushy, these fellas. When they're, like when we were like writing Changing Lines and, setting up for first season, well, okay, we need a social media guy. And RJ was like, I got this. And she just had it, and so we had to have Adler. And then it just like every book, the team grows and grows and grows.
Yeah, it's a very organic growth for the team, which is like
very organic.
A normal team, because you just fall in love with a player on your team, don't you? And they move on, or they get traded, or they retire, or some tragedy happens and they have to have 6 months off or whatever. So it's like real life, and that's how it's worked. So no, we haven't sat down and said, right, he's a left wing, he's 24. We haven't done any of that except for our specific character. We knew that 10 did X, Y, Z, because we had to be able to say that he'd been doing this for 3 years, or he'd had this injury, or what have you. So
yeah, like we'll do pretty in-depth character bios of our couples for this particular book, because like she said, you have to have their history. But mostly everything else is just organic, and it just pops up. We'll be like, hey, what do you think of this? Oh, okay. Yeah, that's good.
We're really professional.
Oh, yes, we're highly professional.
And I imagine with 5 books under your belt here now, you've at least got the writer's Bible of who everybody is you've done already.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally.
Yep.
We've got a Google Doc that we add to for every book. And so right down the bottom, we have actually got a table with names, positions, numbers, and brief little kind of like, this is X's arm or whatever. So we've got that, but we haven't got a huge Bible. We just know, don't we? Yeah.
Yeah, and we have a wonderful team of beta readers.
Yeah, we do.
And editors and proofers who will be like, you said in this book that this was for this person's uncle, and now it's like his cousin. Oh, thank you. They keep us in line. I
mean, the classic was, I believe we gave I say we. It was entirely my fault. I gave 2 of the players the same number, which
I remember that.
It kind of like it wouldn't have maybe been picked up by some people, but you take a hockey fan, they would certainly pick that up. So, you have to be super careful and, get the terms right and things like that. So
I think, things slip by, though. I mean, even through proofers and editors and beta readers, we all aspire for perfection, but we're human, so we don't quite get there.
But we're pretty damn close, aren't we, Vicky?
We are as close as we can possibly get.
And that's all we can ask for. Because otherwise, it just you drive yourself crazy with trying to get it right. So,
yeah.
What's the writing process like for you two? You mentioned a little bit that because of your time difference between RJ in London and Vicky on the East Coast, you do get to write a lot of words in the day potentially. But how's it break down between who's writing what along the way and how the plots come together?
I guess when we come up with the idea, we've both got a feeling for which character we want to take. Like Stan was always going to be Vicky's because she has got this amazing connection with his language and his culture, and it's just that was going to be her character. So she would write, "Are you okay me taking this, Vicky? Because I kind of launched in there."
No,
yeah. Okay. So Vicky will write a chapter about Stan, for example, and then she would send that to me. I read her chapter. I'll make any comments on it, make notes of what she said, like maybe to move the story forward or something I need to do in my chapter. Then I will take Eric. Now he's my character. So I will still write bits about Stan in my chapters, but I will kind of defer to Vicky. I kind of say, well, would he do that? Do you see him doing that in your characterization? So then I will write my Eric chapter and send that to Vicky, and then she kind of goes back and sees what I commented on her chapter. She'll edit on my chapter, and so it goes on and on and on. So it kind of grows very organically. I've used that word twice now today. It's my word of the day.
It's a good word.
It's a good word.
It works very smoothly for us. Now, I'm not sure if it would work that smoothly for 2 other authors who were co-authors.
No.
But our writing process, even our basic writing process on our solo books, is very, very similar. So, we don't plot a lot. We're very much seat of the pants writers. So, that sometimes we're like, well, okay, this didn't work. We'll have to go back and tweak this. We tweak a lot. We're big.
Yeah, we do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
we're big tweakers.
Yeah.
But it works. It works.
Now, you mentioned being a pantser for both of you, essentially. How much do you give yourselves a framework when you're working together? Or is it very much Vicky going, I'm going to do this today, and then throw it back over and see kind of what sticks, and vice versa?
Totally. It is. It's a challenge. And I think that's half the fun. I mean, I've sent I sent a chapter back in our latest book, and I literally had to hide under the table because I'd done something that Vicky would not have been expecting. And actually, she ran with it, and that was cool. And she's done the same thing to me. But it's challenging. It's her character doing what they're supposed to do. Now, my character, like in real life, has to decide what they're going to do because of that. So, yeah, I mean, that's the way we work, isn't it?
Yeah, very much.
What was the question?
No, I mean, you answered it, because it was about like how much framework comes up ahead of time.
There is no framework.
There isn't. There really isn't. I know people are going to be like, "What? How could you know?" But you're supposed to have your plot skeleton, and you're supposed to have, blah blah blah, and that's just not the way we work. Even like I said before, even in our solo work, we're very similar in that. It's like if we don't plot out a lot, we write what we're going to write, and like she said, and we'll throw it up there, and then I'll be like, okay, here's the chapter, I'm going to go, and I'll be like waiting to hear what she has to say, because she'll be like, what? Where did this come from? 90% of the time it works. Sometimes it doesn't, but yeah, we're very organic in that manner.
Yeah, very much so. But we do know our characters very well. We spend quite a lot of time talking about our characters and their motivations and their void, where they're coming from. So, and we know we're heading for like 50, 60,000 words, and every so often we'll stop and we'll go, look, we've got another 30,000. Are we at the point that we want to be at right now? And should we go back and tweak this? And so there is proper writing-y stuff being done there.
Mm-hmm. Here and there.
Here and there.
And I think, over the course of interviewing co-writers for the podcast, I mean, we hear about all kinds of different processes that it happens. And as long as it works for you guys, that's the key. It would be interesting if like one of you was very much the pantser and the other one was really like, I need a structure. But
yeah, I don't know. Do you think even that people like with that different could even co-author? I mean, like, it would be a lot more difficult, I think. Like if I was a strict plotter and RJ was like, well, here you go, and I've thrown X, Y, and Z into this, I would just be like, I can't do this. You didn't follow it would I think be a lot more confrontational maybe. But that's
I haven't encountered that pairing yet, but if I do, I'll let you know.
Yeah,
to see how it works.
It'd be interesting to see like how they work around that, Yeah.
I'm not sure I could work with somebody who knows that in chapter 4 there's going to be this, because I think, was it Stephen King who said I don't know my characters yet, I haven't met them, because you don't meet your characters until you're writing about them and the story takes you along. I might know that these two guys meet and in the last chapter they fall in love and they get married, and in the prologue it's a year later or whatever. But I don't know the journey they're going to, because the journey, oh my God, word of the day, it's very organic.
So how many more books do we have to expect for Railers? Is there an end point, or does it just keep coming?
We are at least 2 more after Poke Check. We have 5 is done. 5 is done and off to the beta, and the beta's not done with it. So there's definitely 6. Now we're going to do a new adult trilogy after 6. And then we're not sure yet what's going to happen after the trilogy. RJ is coming out to Pittsburgh in March for Angels and Sirens, and I will be there. We're going to hang out, and she's going to come hang out with me here in the mountains and probably get snowed in.
Yes!
But yay! But we're going to sit and we're going to have some wine and we're going to discuss.
I don't drink. I don't know what you're talking about. I don't drink.
Okay, I'll drink your half for you then. Okay. And we're going to decide from there. I don't want to say we will not. I don't want to say we will, but I am sincerely hoping that we will continue on. If not with the Railers, possibly with something new.
There will definitely be something. We won't stop writing. The new adult trilogy that's is like the first book is called Riker, and that is actually Jared's son, Jared from Railers 1, 10's other half. So there's going to be a crossover book at Christmas with Railers and the new adult series. But absolutely we'll have another series, and absolutely it's going to be something to do with hockey. But there is that whole problem, like, you know, when you have a family of 5 brothers and they all happen to be gay because you need 5 books, you've got that whole story, that whole problem with a hockey team as well. You can only have so many stories before it's like, is
how many gay men can there be on this hockey team?
Yeah.
Right.
So
right.
But you know, I think we should carry on with the Railers until we're old.
Just keep creating new teams for the Railers to play, and then you can meet those people and you can build a whole league.
Well, we have the Arizona Raptors, don't we?
Look at that.
There's another plot buddy or two going off right there.
Oh yeah.
We'll be back later, Jeff.
Now, back in the fall, the 3 of us, along with Heather Lear, joined up to do Changing on the Fly 2, which is still out there for people to get through the rest of the hockey season. How are we doing on our sales, Vicky?
As of today, we've made about $1,300. So I'm very, very happy about that. And we were just discussing possibly doing a little promotional run with it to maybe drive up some more sales. We'll be pulling it down when hockey season ends, which is May-ish. Is that a word? May-ish?
I think the Penguins might be finishing then, yes.
That's dangerous. I can
Maybe
already
March,
see
April.
I can already see the Ranger Penguin fight for that wild card spot. I can see it coming, and I don't know what we're gonna do. We're always very nice to each other. We're like, oh yeah, way to go, Penguins.
It's been a rough season for all of us.
It has been a season, yeah, very much so.
Yeah. And double so for me, because neither the Penguins or the Red Wings are doing all that great.
Yeah, you've got a bit of a matchup tonight, haven't you? Oh, no, back in January you had a matchup.
Yeah, we're recording this in January, despite it coming out in February. But yeah, tonight actually, as we're recording it, and we should even say that for the Changing on the Fly figures too. That's as of January 13th that we're at that point for our earnings as well.
Right. Yes.
So yeah, definitely. For those who don't know, that Changing on the Fly 2 features stories from the 3 of us plus Heather Lear, and all of those proceeds are going off to You Can Play to help them do their very important work. So we'll put a link to that in the show notes so people can pick it up, and we'll also link to the particular podcast episode where we all gathered to talk about it.
Yay!
So what's coming up next for you two this year, together and separately?
Go ahead, you go first, RJ.
Oh, okay. Well, together, we've just finished Last Defense, which is book 5 in the Railers series. And we're just planning, getting commissioning cover art for book 6, which is called Goal Line. Is that right, Vicky? Goal Line?
I think that's the
working title. The working title.
Working title, yes.
And we have a working blurb. It covers it's the artist who creates the helmet work, you know, for the goalies. Mm-hmm. Really. So, and a young goalie who joins the team as backup to Stan. So that's really good. We'll be starting to write that after I come out to Pittsburgh. So there'll be we'll be talking that storyline face to face as opposed to over IM. And then we've got so that's our August book, isn't it? August, and then Riker is coming out in October, and then a crossover book in December. So that's
correct.
2 of us, and then we've got another 2 coming in the early next year. So yeah, we're planned out into 2019 already.
Good for you. That's awesome.
Myself, I've got the first. What I'm writing at the moment is the first. I've written this down. Can you tell? It's the first in a new series set in a fictional town of Whisper Ridge, Wyoming. It's a bit of a small town romance, ranch romance, cowboys, bad boys, doctors. My kind of trade, really. And that's about a third of the way through. That should be with you late February, early March. And then I've got a new PI series that I'm getting to later in the year. That one of the guys from that was actually from Texas 8, which came out at the end of last year. He was mentioned in there and people wanted his story. And I'm also releasing Ellery 8 and the final Montana book this year. So, yeah, busy year. Really busy year.
Busy. Oh, me. Okay.
Yeah.
I also have mine written down because I can't remember 5 minutes ago. RJ covered all of our stuff, so I do have the final book in my MF Venom series that's coming out in March. Then I'll be doing a couple re-releases of books that I got back from a publisher that went down. I'm currently working on Overtime, which will be the Cuyahoga Cougars number 4. So that's shaping up rather nicely. I'm also going to be starting a new series, which is called the Colors of Love series. And I'll be the first one is Lost in Indigo. And they're all hockey romance stories. And every title of the book reflects the color of the rainbow. So Lost in Indigo is the first. I'll probably start working on the second one of that, which is A Touch of a Yellow Sun. But, I have this to-write list. Other than that, then there's stuff with RJ. Oh, and I have my Shifter books. I'm packaging them all up and hoping to release them around Halloween. So yeah, it's busy. It's very, very busy.
Nice. You two are inspirations for how much you're generating over the next 12 months. So yeah, good luck and keep it up. So what's the best way to keep up with you both online for people who want to track the progress on all this?
For me, the best way is to go to my website, which is rjscott.co.uk. And remember, it's .co.uk and not .com. But I really should buy the .com, thinking about it. And then on there is all the various links to everywhere that I am. Yeah.
Fantastic.
It's basically me too. I'm everywhere. You can go to my website, which is vloceyauthor.com. I spend a lot of time on Facebook. Probably way more time.
Yeah, too much time.
But you can find me on Facebook. Just VL Locey. I have a author page and a readers group, and RJ and I are involved in a lot of groups on Facebook, and we're just ridiculously busy.
But it sounds like you're having a lot of fun too, which is great.
We are.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you both for hanging out for a while with us today. We will link up to all the books and the websites, and best of luck on the Poke Check release.
Thank you.
Thank you once again to VL and RJ. I'm so glad to have them on the show. Yeah,
it was a good time, and it was really good to hear, too, how the Changing on the Fly anthology is doing. Mm-hmm. So make sure you pick that up. It's only going to be around until about May, so your time's ticking if you haven't picked that up yet.
Okay. I think that'll do it for this week's episode. We hope you will join us next week for episode 124. We're going to have Lucy Lennox back. She's going to talk about Felix and the Prince, and Lisa from the Novel Approach will be here, and she'll have, of course, a ton of book recommendations.
Absolutely. It's going to be good stuff.
So guys, remember, no matter where life takes you, the journey will always be sweeter when you have a book. So keep turning those pages and keep reading.
For detailed show notes and the complete episode backlist, go to biggayfictionpodcast.com. New episodes are available every Monday on all major podcast distributors and YouTube. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next week.